Once again, we're back with Mr. Rodney Glassman, who's running for Attorney General of the state of Arizona. And we're trying to get into an in-depth conversation, and especially with important issues. And one of the most important issues in Arizona is immigration, illegal immigration. And as a former Border Patrol officer, worked 27 years on the border, I have a pretty good understanding of that. So I'm very interested in hearing Mr. Glassman's comments about immigration and border issues. Rodney?
Noel, I appreciate the question. Enforcing immigration law, protecting the border is a critical role for the Attorney General. I was just last week down in Yuma, and there are more people crossing the border illegally in the Yuma sector alone, just in any given 3-month period, than there are residents in Yuma. I live down in Phoenix, and the reality is there's more illegals coming across the border than there are people living in the city of Phoenix. It's not just a Southern Arizona issue, it's a state issue. And so we need an Attorney General that is not going to allow the Biden-Harris administration to rent hotels in the city of Scottsdale to park illegals, that's not going to arrest, that's not going to incarcerate. We need to go back to the days when we have federal immigration attorneys on the border, that when we catch these illegals, they're incarcerated.
But in lieu of the federal government acting, which they don't do, what can the state of Arizona, through the Attorney General's office, do? How can you help solve this crisis down there?
Well, first and foremost, it's enforcing the laws that we already have on the books, such as SB 1070 and the pieces that weren't thrown out by the former U.S. Supreme Court. And it's also being tenacious, being a fighter, so that when the legislature passes new legislation or directs the Attorney General and requests that we go back and relitigate some previously passed legislation, then I'm willing to go take that to Washington, D.C., take that to the courts. There's this misconception oftentimes that case law is the law, which it's not. The three branches are not equal. The reality is, and you know this as someone who served in the legislature, that the legislative branch writes the laws. It's the Attorney General's job to enforce those laws, and we have a judiciary that oftentimes gets a little confused. They are not legislators. And what we have right now, which is wonderful, back in the U.S. Supreme Court with a number, a significant number appointed by President Trump, and right here in Arizona, our Arizona Supreme Court, that were appointed by Governor Ducey, we have the opportunity to take cases and to take legislation to the courts to be codified, so that we have new case law that allows for police officers to arrest when people are here illegally, making sure that when someone comes to our country illegally and commits a violent crime, that they're not just released either to go back to their country or to go further north and hide. I mean, that's just, we need to enforce the laws, and that's a huge part of what we have going on. But it also means that we need to make sure we have an Attorney General that is committed to protecting the police.
There you go.
To protecting the police and making sure that when police officers get out of their vehicle to do their job, that they are going to know that they're going to have the back of their elected officials, specifically that the Attorney General is going to have their back.
Right. It's a very important issue, immigration, Rodney, and what would you list under that as far as the crimes that are committed, and not specifically by illegals, but just the increase in crime that we're facing here in this country? Is there any place that the Attorney General can step in to mitigate the rising crime rates that we're facing in our major cities?
It's working with the legislature to make sure we pass laws that allow that if you're here illegally, you get incarcerated. You don't get set free to run around to go to different places, but you get incarcerated, and then you get deported. And that's what needs to happen. And the way to make that happen is to make sure that we're driving legislation forward and enforcing legislation. There's a misconception that in order to understand how illegal immigration is impacting our state, that you need to live on the border. Well, the reality is, for everyone watching who lives right here in Yavapai County and surrounding areas, illegal immigration impacts our schools. It impacts our cities. It impacts our parks. It impacts our jobs. And it is pervasive. And that is why securing the border and enforcing the laws that we have on the books is so critical.
Talk to me about sanctuary cities and the role that the Attorney General can play in that.
The Attorney General has a critical role in making sure that municipalities follow state law. The Attorney General has the ability to write non-binding legal opinions to make those decisions that cut off state shared revenue. We just saw recently Attorney General Brnovich, when the liberal mayor and council down in the city of Tucson has threatened to fire city employees that don't choose to get the vaccine. They're forcing everyone to get the vaccine.
Right.
And it was Attorney General Brnovich who stepped up and wrote that opinion to cut off their state shared revenue. So there's a stick that the Attorney General carries, which is why having an Attorney General that knows how to make decisions, knows how to move the ball down the field,
right.
knows how to be decisive is critical. And those are strengths that I've demonstrated professionally that I'll bring to this position.
Do you think your background in the law, especially constitutional law, helps you prepare for this job as the Attorney General for the state of Arizona? And your judicial philosophy, I gather that you have a conservative philosophy, but why don't you tell us more about that?
The Constitution, both our federal and our Arizona Constitution, are not living, breathing documents. I do not believe that it is the job of judges or the Attorney General to interpret them. It's to follow and enforce them. And I think that's one of the critical things that I bring to the fight
Right.
As our next Attorney General, is you want someone who's a winner. You're not looking for the best jurist to interpret the law. Frankly, you're looking for the kind of person that you'd hire to be your attorney. And that's why I'm frankly proud of my track record. I'm proud to be running with the support of President Karen Fann, as well as your support, because there are legislators, even Majority Leader Ben Toma from down at the House, conservatives who understand the importance of having an Attorney General that's going to enforce the law, that's going to provide legal guidance to agencies that protect Arizonans. And that's what's so critical about this job.
One of the issues that I had while I was in the legislature was that we came to the Attorney General with an issue, and we wrote documentation and letters, and these inquiries met nothing but silence. It was months before we even were able to get a response back. And talk to us a little bit about your philosophy of responding to legislator requests or information, and being truly a hands-on Attorney General who will understand that when people are making inquiries of you, they want a feedback. They want to hear what it is. So tell us about that.
Well, Noel, I appreciate that question, and I'm proud to be the only person running for Attorney General that can rattle off for you. You know, the last half dozen law clients that I've had, people that take money out of their own pocket to hire me to be their attorney. And I think that's something that uniquely positions me to be the next Attorney General, because as you said, I'm applying for a job. I'm applying to be your attorney. I'm applying to be everyone else's attorney. And part of being a good attorney is being responsive. It means answering the call. It means returning the call.
Right.
And then it means taking action. Exactly. And that's how I've fed my family now.
Right.
For over a decade,
Right.
and that's frankly critical. That's what the job is.
I tend to agree with you, because when we deal with people that are entrenched in government activities, the bureaucracy, not responsive whatsoever. And it takes that kind of attitude about working, actually having to produce a product for a paying client that makes you responsive and on time. Yeah, we understand that.
And I'll tell you, we talked about the importance and my belief that the number one issue is pushing back on federal overreach. We've talked about securing the border, and stopping illegal immigration. But a great example where responsiveness, Noel, is so critical is when it comes to fighting election fraud.
Right.
In Arizona, it's the Secretary of State and the county recorders that run the elections, but it's the job of the Attorney General by statute to investigate and prosecute election fraud. I was just having breakfast recently with Congressman Gosar, And he was talking about how when the election came about, with the funny business, when you could see that there was circumstantial evidence problems with the election, and it was time for that investigation, he reached out to the governor, he reached out to the Attorney General's office, and when that fell on deaf ears, that's when he enlisted President Karen Fann at the legislature.
Right.
You know, well, candidly, it's not the legislature's job
That's right.
to do election audits. It's the job of the Attorney General.
Absolutely.
And I can tell you, Noel, if I would have been Attorney General, I would have done the audit last December, because that's the job of the Attorney General when there's circumstantial evidence to do that. But Noel, even before you get to counting the ballots that are in the box, the reality is that Arizona and the legislature and the citizens have passed citizens initiatives and legislation that is critical to fighting election fraud. That there must be two forms of valid identification before you vote. That counties and the state are required to manage their permanent early voting lists accurately. And those are state laws where enforcement falls to who? The Arizona Attorney General. And so it's not just about counting ballots after the fact or looking into, it's about making sure that also understanding that ballot harvesting is being stopped, and that only people who are here legally and registered to vote legally are able to cast their ballots. And so when it comes to election fraud, I will be the Attorney General that makes sure that if you commit fraud, you will be prosecuted.
Thank you very much for listening in, and thank you, Rodney, for coming down here to answer questions and give us some straight answers. Really appreciate having you here.
Well, I appreciate it. I love being in Yavapai County and love the support.